Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in, Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix, peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Bridge, it's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothics, number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack, 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast.
July 26th, a beautiful Wednesday summer morning here in the ADK. The temperatures were in the upper 60s today with sunny blue skies. Yes, it was going to be the type of day that deserved to be spent running around in the high peaks. This time, however, I was not going to be doing it solo. Instead, I'd be reunited with a friend, your favorite Adirondack photographer and YouTuber, Mr. Jonathan Zaharek. Now, it had been a while since Jonathan and I climbed a mountain together, and since he was back in town, we had to get into the mountains, and we had to do it now. So we did. And since Jonathan has been working on completing the Adirondack grid over the last few years, we had a specific set of mountains in mind to do today. Now, if you aren't familiar, the grid is climbing every high peak in every month of the year. Yes, it is a massive undertaking that takes people many years to complete. But a Bluebird Adirondack day was upon us. The mountains were absolutely not calling our names, but we did choose to go there anyways, and it was time to catch up with some old friends. And no, not just catching up with Jonathan, but catching up with some old friends known as Colvin, Blake, Dial, and Nippletop. Another day in the high peaks awaited us, and we were off. Today's hike would include summiting 4 high peaks from the Ausable Club, beginning with Mount Colvin via the Gilbrook Trail, then onto the notorious Blake Peak, then back up and over Colvin to climb Elk Pass, onto Nippletop, and finally to Dial. Then we would go back down the Leech Trail, back to the Lake Road, and ultimately back to our car. A nice big high peaks day that would include more than 18 miles and over 6,000 feet of gain. A 4-peak day and a set of mountains that offer unbeatable views. Well, most of them offer unbeatable views. Hi, Blake. So Jonathan picked me up at my house in Lake Placid at 5:15 a.m. for a 6 a.m. start. And yes, I know some of you are saying, oh, that seems a lot later than you usually start. What happened to the 4:30 crew? I know, 6 a.m. was actually our compromise start time since Jonathan had some video needs he needed to accomplish today. So starting in the dark would not allow for a couple shots he needed for a project that he's been working on. So we compromised and decided we'd start at 6 a.m. So he picked me up and we headed to the AMR. And it's a place that I've not hiked from for multiple years ever since they implemented a permit system. Now, I've mentioned it on my podcast plenty, but I actually have no problem with the AMR making permits to park there. It is their property, and if they want to charge people to park there, I support it. My problem, however, stems with their limiting access to public lands via a state easement through that very property, and as they claim that you can't even walk in there unless you have a permit. That is my issue, not parking. But nevertheless, Jonathan made the reservation, so it was time for me to go back to the AMR. Ah, the Lake Road. I have not really missed you. After we arrived, Jonathan told me he needed a shot of a car pulling into the AMR, so he trusted me to film it. Therefore, upon arriving, I got out of the car, I grabbed his camera, and I gave him the thumbs up that I was rolling and ready. And then I filmed him pulling in. But as it would turn out, apparently, I pressed the wrong button, and I very much did not record the shot that he needed. Sorry, John. You know, I'm an audio guy by trade. What can I say? Cameras, I guess they're just a little too hard. They're a little too difficult. But we parked the car, we grabbed our gear, and we started walking up the road towards the trailhead right around 6 a.m. It is 6 a.m. I'm here with Jonathan Zaharek. Jonathan, say hello.
Hi.
We are hiking
Colvin, Blake, Nippletop, and Dial today. I'm on the lake road. It's been a while since I've been here on the lake road. And nothing's changed. Here I am, except for the whole permit system.
Which you have not hiked yet since you've been here.
Which I've been avoiding. But anyways, we're here. Jonathan and I are hanging out for today. Gonna have a nice big day. Should be nice and clear. There's clouds, but the sky is pretty blue above us. So it should be a great day in the high peaks. Jonathan's doing some stuff. I'm doing some stuff, and it's gonna be a fun day. Here we go.
Past the quiet golf course, left between the tennis courts, and onto the sign-in register. Ah, hiking from the AMR. It has been a little while, and it's kind of nice to be back. But we signed in around 6:15 a.m. at the trail register, where we met another hiker, a woman named Alexis from New Jersey, who was also hiking the same mountains today. And throughout the entire day, we'd be playing leapfrog with her. So more from Alexis later.
Well, not much has changed here on the lake road. It's exactly as I remember. Just past the Dial and Nippletop Leech Trail junction, continuing on. Good amount of people out here for the day at this hour.
Considering it's Wednesday.
Considering it is a Wednesday. Yeah, it's the middle of the week here. Nice and peaceful today in the woods, which is good. And onward, more miles on the lake road.
So we had 2.5 miles to walk down the lake road before cutting a left onto the Gill Brook Trail. And it was as you would expect when walking down a dirt road. Pretty uneventful. But Jonathan and I enjoyed good conversation, and we caught up with one another as we discussed all the pertinent subjects, from the Adirondacks to books we're reading to Bigfoot. You know, the usual stuff, am I right? Once arriving at the Gill Brook Trail, however, we veered left and we began the real hike in the woods towards the Colvin Trail Junction. That was the first checkpoint of the day.
All right, we made it to the Gill Brook Trail. 6:48. 48 minutes. We got to pick up the pace here a little bit. Yeah, walking along the river, turning, heading up. First stop, Colvin. Named after my homie, Verplank Colvin. Love him. Huge Colvin fan right here. And eventually I'll get my Colvin series that I've been working on completed. But until then, you'll have to settle for my trip up the mountain that bears his name. Onward.
Now, I like this trail, and I like hiking these mountains in this direction because you get more of the lake road completed earlier in the day compared to later. And the hike from the lake road to the Colvin Junction is just a nice gradual climb. It's 2.2 miles with roughly 1,400 feet of gain from the lake road to the Colvin Trail Junction. So it's just a nice start to the day. It doesn't just right off the bat hit you with elevation. It's a nice gradual start. Now, if you climb these mountains in the loop in the opposite direction, you're actually pretty much punched in the face immediately with lots of elevation gain up the Leech Trail. So in my mind, this is a nicer start to the day, and it's my preference for hiking these mountains. So there's also other reasons that I prefer this route as well, but I'll get to that later.
It is just before 7 a.m. So we are almost an hour into the day, 6:56. Jonathan is currently taking some video footage of a little waterfall here along the Gill Brook while I wait, dying to keep moving. You know, that is the way of Jonathan Z. That's why you all have to check out his YouTube channel and enjoy the content he creates over there. All right, it looks like he's done. There we go. All right, now we can continue moving. Here we go. Continuing up the Gill Brook towards the Colvin Trail Junction.
What's that moisture coming off your head?
So I dumped water on myself.
Once turning into the woods, you'll hike along the Gill Brook for miles. Now, one thing to be aware of is that once you get closer to the junction for Colvin and you leave the Gill Brook, the water refill options for the day are pretty much non-existent. So I'd recommend getting some good slugs of water and refilling before you arrive at the Colvin Trail Junction. And there are ponds between Colvin and Nippletop that you could filter, but, you know, I'd recommend grabbing some fresh flowing Gill Brook H2O instead.
All right, we just passed the Lake Road Cutoff Trail, walking next to another waterfall. There's a bunch of people out on the trail today. We've passed a couple of groups. It's a nice, pretty day. The sun is shining through the canopy in a very delightful manner. mostly hardwood trees with some evergreens as you walk along the Gill Brook. But yeah, lots of roots. Same old stuff here hiking in the high peaks. Jonathan and I are just dishing about everything from high peaks history to woods and trails to everything in between. A good time being had. Isn't that right, Jonathan?
Yeah.
But we got a big day ahead of us. It's pretty humid out, so I'm definitely already sweaty, but such is to be expected.
Mountain breeze, call my name.
A mountain breeze indeed. And as my daughter June likes to say, breathe in that fresh mountain air. Nothing beats it.
We continued hiking along the Gill Brook, where the woods were a nice mix of hardwood and evergreen trees, as the sound of the river was never far off. Lots of birds chirping, just a magnificent morning in the woods. We passed a handful of hikers on the way, including our new friend Alexis from New Jersey a couple of times, as again we contemplated leapfrog throughout the morning, as Jonathan would stop to shoot some videos of, waterfalls or some trail signs along the way. But the sun was out, the weather was flawless, and it was a good day in the high peaks. Now, I know treacherous, stormy weather makes for more interesting stories on a podcast and interesting listening, but we all know those bluebird summer days make for much more enjoyable hiking conditions, so that's what you got this week. That's what our day entailed. As we hiked up Colvin, John and I talked a bit about the man the mountain is named after. None other than the surveyor of the Great Adirondack Survey, Mr. Verplanck Colvin himself. We both researched a lot about this man and the history of the Adirondack Park, so it made for good conversation. If you're interested in this guy, I highly recommend the book by Nina Webb, Footsteps Through the Adirondacks, the Verplanck Colvin Story. Fantastic read. And if you ask me, Verplanck Colvin, he was done dirty by another outdoors legend and a former New York State governor and U.S. President, Mr. Teddy Roosevelt himself. I know all of you are all about Teddy Roosevelt, national parks, total outdoors guy. I get it, but I'm going to be honest, I am Team Colvin. Anyways, but that's for another day. But our eyes were currently set on the Mount Colvin Trail Junction. We rounded a bend, and then boom, we were there before we knew it, at the trail junction.
All right, it is 7:50. We are 5 miles in. We've been playing leapfrog with another hiker named Alexis, who's here with us at the trail junction to go right up to Colvin and then up and over to Blake. Colvin's 1.1 miles, Blake is 2.4. Seems easy, but as anyone who's been to Blake knows,
Blake's 5 miles pretty much.
it is not an easy trip. But yeah, about a 5 mile out and back to get back to this junction before heading up to Nippletop. 5 miles in, hour and 50 minutes since leaving the car. But having a quick water break, and then we will continue.
So we enjoyed a quick snack before the climb, along with our new friend from New Jersey who had caught up to us at that moment. And now it was time to start climbing. The climb from the junction to Colvin is roughly a mile with 1,000 feet of gain, so you'll work for it, but it's also pretty quick. Another reason that I like hiking these mountains in this loop is because it's really nice going from car to the first summit of the day. It's just a nice gradual climb, and then boom, you're there before you know it. And I like that feeling. I think it really adds the morale for the day. It really boosts the morning. Now, if you've never hiked these mountains before, the out and back from that trail junction to Colvin and Blake is arguably the most deceiving sign in the high peaks. Now, not because of any of the information being wrong or even confusing. In fact, it's all good and well in that regard. It's truthful. What's deceiving is actually more mental, let's say. Oh, it's only 2.5 miles from here to Blake? Oh, so I'll hit both high peaks in just another 2.5 miles? Awesome. I know that's what you're thinking, but oh, sweet hiker friend of mine, this 5 mile round trip out and back is one of the hardest stretches of trail in the park, thanks to our beloved yet notorious Blake Peak. So from Colvin to Blake, you'll drop almost 700 feet of elevation in half a mile to the col, only to then go right back up similar mileage and similar elevation to Blake. And then you'll come right back down Blake, back to the col, and then right back up to Colvin once again. Then you have to go the mile and 1,000 feet of loss back to the trail junction. So that 5 mile round trip, you are going to work for it. So again, the sign is not deceiving due to false information. It's just a lot more challenging than it may seem. That is all. But you know, how can you add that to a sign? I get it. Guess you'll have to listen to this podcast to know that. But we hustled up the mountain, maintaining a consistent yet comfortable pace before arriving at the final climb as we go up the rocks to the views of the Ausable Lake and Sawteeth and more that awaited us on the summit. Along with an original Verplank Colvin survey marker, might I add, in the rocks. Yes, from the late 1800s, so freaking cool. Man, I like that stuff.
All right, we're at the final climb to get up to the summit of Colvin. My main man, Verplank Colvin, will await us at the top. All right, looks nice and clear. Climbing these ledges. Jonathan Zaharek filming me. Don't you know I'm a podcaster? I don't go on camera. And we're here. Woo! And it is smoky today. It's clear. Great views. It's 8:33. So 2.5 hours from car to summit. We are 6 miles into the day as we stand atop Mount Colvin. Time for that first summit sandwich. And Alexis has joined us here. Alexis from New Jersey is here with us. Time to eat.
This is number 22, 23 for you.
22.
This was 23 for me.
About to be halfway through her 46er journey in about an hour. Very cool.
This is an original.
But we made it to the summit of Colvin around 8:30 a.m., our first high peak of the day, the 39th tallest high peak, standing 4,057 feet elevation up in the blue yet smoky Adirondack sky. Time for a sandwich. All right, first summit, first sandwich. Today's sandwiches were chicken breast, provolone cheese, lettuce, mayonnaise, mustard on a potato roll. And yes, I had many. Because like I always say, one sandwich per summit. Jonathan, however, took a very different approach today, as he is one to do. Let's just say he doesn't quite require the same amount of food or water as I do when I'm going hiking. But we both enjoyed a snack and we took in the views. The smoke from the Canadian wildfires could be seen, but ultimately it really wasn't too bad today. And then soon Alexis joined us on the summit and we all took in the views together and had great conversation. And it was up here that we learned that she had been hammering her way through the high peaks this summer. In fact, this was her third day in a row of a 4-day hiking stretch this week, where I believe she said Monday she did the Upper Great Range, Tuesday she hiked Whiteface and Esther, Wednesday, or today, was Dial, Nippletop, Blake, and Colvin, and the following day, Thursday, she was going to be tackling the Dix Range. Just an absolute beast. But after a slightly longer than usual stay on the summit, we began the treacherous, yet still enjoyable, out and back to Blake Peak.
Well, our time here on the summit of Colvin for this point of the day is coming to an end. It is time to go start the hellish trek over to Blake Peak. Blake was Colvin's best friend and lifelong confidant. And now we're going to go over there. Jonathan, he's finishing his blueberry bagel. I just crushed a sandwich, a protein bar, some chips, and a fruit pouch.
I get so much food FOMO on the trail when I see other people. Like, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm. I bring a lot of food.
I know. That's one of the that's, yeah, dude.
I like to eat a lot of food on the very first summit. Then I always have this other sandwich per summit, but I feel like I eat a bunch on the first to really fuel up. So when I get to the second summit, like, I'm good. And then around the third summit, I'm ready for another one, and so on. John's going to throw his trash off the side of the mountain. Just kidding. And here we go. Onward to Blake.
Now, Blake is named after Verplank Colvin's right-hand man and lifelong confidant and best friend, Mills Blake. So it's only appropriate that these mountains typically come as a package deal. And I absolutely love Adirondack history, so it legitimately makes me super happy that even well after the deaths of these two Adirondack legends, that they still come as a package deal. Because you pretty much always hike Colvin and Blake together. Super cool in my opinion. Now, what is not super cool, but is still kind of cool, is the steep descent off Colvin down to the col between the high peaks. Especially since Blake often shows itself to you through the trees, looking very glorious in the distance, yet also taunting you. But hey, the longer I hike, the more I actually appreciate every trail for what it is. I start to appreciate the story that each one tells and the experience it brings. And this trail, the story is slow but hard. But hey, that's okay. It's just the way it is sometimes. We're out here hiking, right? We chose to be here, so let's enjoy it.
What do you think of that view of Blake?
It's a decent view of Blake, certainly. I'd say it's one of the better views of the mountain, and it really just kind of taunts you as it sits in front of you like this, knowing what's still to come.
Better to look at it than to look from it.
As we continue to climb down and down and down, 700 feet down, 700 feet up. But that's what we're doing. Here we go, going on to Blake.
Now, the half mile down to the col involves some steeper moments, and there's even one spot with a godsend wooden ladder. But it's a slow move as you descend further and further and further down towards the col. Then once you're at the col, after yelling out, "I'm in a col," it's time to go right back up and basically ascend the same elevation you just descended. Slightly less, but might as well be the same.
I'm in a col! We're in the col. And now we're about to climb right back up to the summit of Blake, to turn right back down, to come right back to this col, to go right back up to the summit of Colvin. But hey, that's why we're here. We knew that, and it's still fun. You forget about the pain, the difficulty. A couple months go by, and you're like, yeah, I'll go right back to that mountain. I don't care. But when you get off these mountains, you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to go up Blake again, but yeah, here I am. Why not? Yeah, we are half a mile from the summit. Here we go, about to climb some slabs to get to a wooded summit.
Let's go. So we wasted no time in the col and we continued up the trail towards Blake's summit. The woods around Blake are mostly spruce and pines, and the trail, though quite eroded, involves a decent amount of climbing slabs and being careful about where you're stepping and what you're grabbing onto. So be cautious when you're out there. But overall, for anyone going through their journey to 46, Blake is like a rite of passage mountain. If the mountains were individual movies, Blake would undoubtedly be a coming-of-age drama about a parentless child growing up and having to figure out the world, love, and his purpose all on his own. It is a tough climb without any reward. Actually, well, I shouldn't say that, because it doesn't have a reward in the traditional sense when it comes to big summit views, although the other three mountains of the day all do. The reward on Blake is still a reward, except it's just different. It's a reward of knowing that you made it to the top. Sometimes the reward at the top is simply knowing that you accomplished it and, just a job well done. More parallels between real life and the lessons that we can learn right here in the mountains. Not everything is always going to be a reward. Sometimes you're just going to get a pat on the back, say, good job, and it's time to keep going.
Whew. Just climbed a slide, a little slide slab. So I'm almost to the top of Blake. And I'm in the very heavily covered forest. And I'm in the heavily moss covered part of the woods now. Raggedy trees, all pine trees. You know the look. Green moss everywhere. Really scraggly looking spruce trees. Almost to the top of Blake. Been here a few times. It's been a little while since I've been up here. But, it's still fun. And we're currently with our new friend Alexis from New Jersey. And it's her first time. So it's always fun to be with someone on their first time when they actually get to the summit of Blake and say, that's it? So almost there. Whew.
But we kept climbing the slabs, kept moving up the mountain, around the boulders, up the dirt trails, and we were back on the summit of Blake Peak. My third time here, and Jonathan's probably 73rd time up here. Ah, Blake, it is nice to see you again. Now, we finished this climb with Alexis, and it's always fun to be with someone who's experiencing the Blake summit for the very first time. But the three of us stood on the completely wooded summit, 3,960 feet elevation, the 43rd tallest high peak in the Adirondacks. Hello, Mills Blake Peak. it's nice to see you again.
And we have made it. 9:45 a.m. Here's the rock on the summit of Blake. At the summit, we are 7.1 miles into the day, 3 hours and 45 minutes. Colvin and Blake in the books. Alexis, what do you think? Pretty sweet indeed.
It wasn't as bad as I was expecting. So
Good.
that was nice.
Well,
Yes.
but you're only 50% of the way down.
Yeah, we got to get back to Colvin.
Right, no, I know.
Jonathan, how many times have you been on Blake now? What time is
10?
this for you? Number 10.
I think so, yeah.
Double digits for Jonathan Zaharek here on the summit of Blake. Exciting. So, snack or head back down?
I'm going to eat my stinger.
All right, we're going to have a quick snack and then start moving.
So I've only been up here 2 times previously, and both times I took a photo and immediately started my way back down. I never even took my backpack off. And this is the same exact approach that Alexis took today. She got up there, snagged a photo, and just decided to continue her way back down. So I can obviously relate very strongly to this notion. My perspective, however, has evolved year after year here in the mountains, though. Now, I believe each mountain has a story to tell, and it's worth hearing, it's worth experiencing, and it's worth seeing that story play out. Sure, a huge summit view is the best, it's what we always want, but that doesn't mean this fully wooded summit doesn't have a place at the table too. It doesn't mean it doesn't have its own story to tell. And it's an interesting thing to think about. The amount of work involved to get to that summit for a non-traditional payoff, or a payoff many would describe as a no payoff. But people's perspectives on the Adirondacks, on the high peaks, on mountains, or just the outdoors in general tends to mature over the years, and this is simply how I feel now. So with that in mind, I actually explored the summit for the first time, and I walked all around while eating yet another summit sandwich, because of course we're going to have another sandwich. But we probably spent a good 15 minutes on this summit, which compared to the probably 15 seconds both times I spent previously was an eternity, and it was really nice. But the hard work for the day had only just begun. So eventually, we had to strap up and start making our way back down towards the Col to go right back up to Colvin. We had a lot of hiking still to do.
Bro, you know how much the setup is right here?
Expensive. So we're about to head off of Blake. We've been up here for a bit, hanging out, enjoying the scenery. And I noticed Jonathan was not really sweaty. My whole shirt is a darker blue. It's drenched. So I asked Jonathan, how are you not sweating? He hit me with a pro tip. All right, everyone, write this down. You want a pro tip to not sweat?
Don't drink water.
There it is.
Don't drink water, you won't sweat, no problem.
Don't drink water. Avoid water to avoid sweat when you're climbing in the high peaks or wherever you may be venturing to. Pro tip from Jonathan Zaharek, the Mr. Anti-Water himself. Like and subscribe. All right,
Hydrate or dihydrate. Just kidding.
It's a pro tip. Pro tip, and again,
Leave water at home too, less weight.
Less weight too. There is no benefit to having water from what it sounds like. So I should just
your
dump
body's
mine out.
70% water. Why would you need it?
I think our bodies are actually I always feel like 98% water is the statistic they'd always say in high school, which makes no sense. But what do I know? I'm not a scientist.
Anatomically, you're also just like all air.
All right, I'm gonna dump my water out, and we're gonna head down the trail now. All right, heading back to the Col. Bye-bye. Also, that was all a joke. Drink your water.
Back down the slabs towards the Col, into the Col lined with evergreens, and then back up another 700 feet or so towards Colvin. As we started climbing back up towards Colvin, while I stepped down to one boulder, I felt a sensation that I was trying to avoid today. My right quad started to tense up and Charlie horse. Crap. I've been eating and drinking today purposely so I wouldn't cramp up. So at this point, I slammed home some more food, a bunch of peanut M&Ms, and I drank the rest of one of my Nalgene's filled with water and electrolytes. Noon tablets. So I was hoping that this would stop this Charlie horse cramp from progressing any further, because it can really, really ruin a day. So we continued climbing up, and up. Now, normally the trip back tends to feel faster, but to me, for some reason, the trip back to Colvin just felt endless today, if I'm being honest with you. And during this portion of the day, Jonathan was telling me about his recent trek along the Appalachian Trail, which was a great experience from the sounds of it. And he also told me about some different shoes he's been experimenting with on the trail. And one of these days, I'll invest in a trail runner shoe. But, you know, for now, I guess I'll just keep hiking in the same model Timberland hiking boot that I've been using for many years, pretty much ever since I started hiking. I actually believe I'm on my 5th pair of the exact same hiking boot. Pretty wild. But eventually, we made it back to the summit of Mount Colvin, right as a father and son were stepping onto the summit themselves. And we didn't go back on the summit ledge, and we decided to give it to them and let them enjoy it together. So instead, we carried on our merry way back down Colvin. Now, throughout most of the day, we maintained a very comfortable pace. Not too slow, not too fast, just comfortable. A maintainable pace, which in my opinion is the correct speed to go when you're hiking, in my opinion. Whatever is maintainable for the entire day. And as you would expect, we eventually made it back to the Colvin trail split.
So that just under 5 mile out and back to Colvin and Blake is complete. It's a doozy. It's a doozy. Don't ever let anyone tell you that that is an easy 5 miles, because it's not. It's also more like 3 mountains than 2, even though technically you only bag 2 mountains, but you definitely are summiting the equivalent of 3. Whew.
Hey, James, do you have any more of those M&Ms?
I do.
Really?
You need some?
I'll take some.
Yeah, I'll take a few.
Yeah. I don't want to take out one of my slices of pizza for the ascent. I want to wait for the top.
Peanut M&Ms.
Ooh, king size. Family size.
Family size. All right. We're
You
going
know, my friend Mark ate a whole Ziploc bag of these when we went to hike Indian Head once, and then before we even got to the top, completely threw the whole bag up.
Oh, that's no good. I've never had that privilege, but yeah, we're gonna hammer some M&Ms, get a little sugar into the body, and then we're gonna head 1.9 miles up to Nippletop, where an amazing view awaits us. I like the summit of Nippletop. All right, let's do it.
But now, the next challenge was up. It was time to climb Elk Pass. So Jonathan and I took a right at the junction, heading towards Elk Pass, and we carried on between 2 unnamed ponds. Well, as far as I know, they're unnamed, but I could be completely wrong. So John took some videos, and we calculated the mileage and the gain up Elk Pass to Nippletop, which is roughly 1,200 feet of gain over 0.7 miles. So yeah, it is all there, and you better get ready to do some heavy breathing.
And now the pain train is going to arrive as we start climbing all the way up. The pain train, all the way up to the top of Nippletop.
We don't stop when we're tired. We stop when we're done.
Boom.
David Goggins.
That's it. There's the other little pond. What's the elevation gain and the mileage right here up Elk Pass? Trivia.
I have that in my mind, I think.
Trivia.
I want to say it's 1.2 miles with 1,600 root.
Well, there it is. I don't really actually know. I have to look at a map. I have known. I don't remember, though. But anyways, it's steep. But here we go. Let's do it.
So like always, you know, just find that maintainable pace that you can climb up without ever needing to stop and just let it rip. Step after step after step. And before you know it, you'll reach your destination. So over the wooden plank bridges and between the 2 ponds we went, and then we started the steep climb. It was a slow burn, no doubt about it. We certainly were not running up the northwestern slope of Nippletop, that's for sure. Good conversation continued throughout the day and throughout this part of the hike as we hit pretty much all subjects, ranging from business ideas we have to stock market talk to how the world was made and everything in between.
But the real out and back for Blake technically doesn't start until the top column.
Yep. No, I do wholeheartedly believe there is a maturity and just more perspective shift that comes with the more you climb in the high peaks. Because yeah, we still joke about Blake, but you know, you used to hate it, say, oh, I'm never going back there. And then eventually you start to realize, hey, any mountain's better than no mountain. And this has a story to tell all in of itself. Views to see, challenges to overcome, you know, trails to walk, which is awesome. Like, they shouldn't all be great mountain trails because there's also a story to be told here. And when you realize that, you just accept it for what it is and find the good in it, more or less. And even though it's a grind or it's hard, it's still great to be out here. And I think that's the main part, the main shift that happens the more you spend time out here in the mountains.
Good times, as always, as our heavy breathing worked its way into every sentence during the 0.7-mile ascent up Elk Pass towards the summit of Nippletop. But once we made it to the top of Elk Pass, over all the boulders and up the roots, I knew that the heavy labor for the day was over because the hike from Nippletop to Dial is very quick with minimal elevation change. And once you're at the top of Elk Pass, it's just a simple 0.2-mile trek over to the true summit. So nice and easy.
But we have made it to the trail junction up Elk Pass, 0.2 miles to the right to the summit of Nippletop. And at that point, the hard work for the day is complete because getting from Nippletop down to Dial and then eventually back down to the lake road is definitely the easier portion of the day. But anyways, we got to get to Nippletop because Jonathan has only had a bagel and some energy bites. So
I'm not complaining.
No, he's not. But I want to get him. He's got some pizza in that backpack, and I want to get him that pizza. Hey, speaking of pizza, what are we doing after this hike? That we must discuss now.
Well, it's Wednesday. That means for locals, it's half off at the Pickle Pig.
No, I'm talking like, what are we getting at Stu's in Keene when we drive through?
Milkshake. We're
going to get a milkshake, but like, are we also going to get slices of pizza?
Well, Keene Valley, for the record, Keene Valley, I mean, as much as I love my local Stewart's, the Keene Valley one I think is the best because they have the speed bake oven, which makes their pizzas not undercooked.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, if the bottom of the pizza is not like a crisp, if I don't feel that crunch, I'm throwing it back at the person that made it at me. I don't want to. They put me in this position. I don't want to throw the pizza back at them, but I have to. If the bottom of my pizza is not crispy, what is the point?
I haven't had ice cream in a while, so I think a milkshake sounds good.
Dude, it hits so hard. The salty and the sugary, but...
Extra protein.
All right, let's go over to Nippletop and get you some pizza. And I got one more sandwich in the old pouch. Let's do it.
And once we made it to that sign at the top of Elk Pass, we were ready. Take a right, 0.2 miles from the summit. Let's go. We moved pretty quickly at this point, through the mud and enjoying the occasional views, but it was not long before we came to the true summit and the massive views that await. So if Blake has 0 views, the views here would be a complete 100. You got front row views of Blake and Colvin, where we just came from, as the entire Great Range sat directly behind it. It's just truly amazing. But we hit the Nippletop summit, the tallest mountain of the day, around 1:15 p.m., and we immediately popped off our shirts because that's what you do on Nippletop. Just kidding, we did not do that. That is not something that we did. But we were standing 4,620 feet in the sky on top of the 13th tallest peak in the Adirondack Park.
And we've made it. The summit of Nippletop. It's just around 1:15, so that puts us at 7 hours and 15 minutes into the day. What a view. Nice and wide open. Man, this is one of the best ones right here. Yeah, it doesn't get much better than this. All right, we got to get that slice of pizza into Mr. Zaharek. I'm going to crush another sandwich, and then we'll continue our day.
It was here where I ate, you guessed it, another summit sandwich. They always hit so hard, and if you don't eat all of them on the summits, they hit pretty hard back at the trailhead too when you're done. But Jonathan and I decided to do a quick Instagram live video. Actually, it was Jonathan's idea, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? So we did that from the summit of Nippletop because, we were there. Why not? So that was fun. We did that for a few minutes. But it was a little chilly up there. It was a little windy, and, the overall temperature was still kind of low up there, and I'm sweaty, and it's a little cold. But overall, not too bad. Semi-comfortable. But it was at this point that I did decide to change both my shirt and my socks into some fresh ones. And whoa, what a game changer that always is. Changing into fresh clothes before the final push of the day, it's always on my radar, and it's why I always have extra clothes in my heavy pack. I always have at least 2 extra pairs of socks in my pack, and always at least 1 extra shirt, oftentimes 2. But after a good 20 or 25 minutes, we decided to carry on for the day. So far, so good with avoiding any more cramps, thankfully, and now for a fun part of the day, going from Nippletop to Dial. Now, the elevation change between these 2 mountains is minimal, and if you go from Nippletop to Dial, you're gradually losing elevation for most of the hike over, and it's just a nice walk through the woods. And the woods are fantastic. They have an otherworldly feel in many places. They're just great. It's definitely the type of spot you're going to take lots of pictures because you're going to say, oh, these woods are cool looking. But no sign of our new friend Alexis yet. But don't you worry, we'll catch back up to her eventually.
Nippletop over to Dial is just a damn pleasure. It's just so nice. The woods are nice. It's nice and gentle. It's pretty much flat because you are losing some elevation, and you'll gain some more eventually a little bit to get to the summit. But overall, it's kind of a hop, skip, and a jump. A couple miles, but the woods you walk through they're beautiful. They're very picturesque. It's got a Narnia vibe to it, which I'm into. Just a delight every time.
The trip from Nippletop to Dial is 2 miles, and you simply just hike along the ridge for the majority of it. And just before you get to the final climb up to the summit is the point where actually a semi-popular, but not really that popular bushwhack route from Dial to Dix comes out and hits the trail. Or you go in the woods from there, depending what direction you're going. But if you've heard any of my FKT attempt episodes here on the podcast, many of these people did the Dial to Dix bushwhack during their hikes, and this is the moment where they would start that bushwhack. But that route begins just about 0.2 miles below the summit. But it does mark the final push to the summit of Dial, and from there we picked up our pace in anticipation of hitting that final summit. 0.2 miles to the giant ledge marking the top of Dial, and just like that, we had scaled the mountain and we were at the summit. The final summit of the day, 4,020 feet up in the Adirondack sky, standing on the 41st tallest high peak in the Adirondack Park. 4 mountains on the day, 4 mountains summited, a good day here in the high peaks.
And we have made it. As I climb the huge boulder here at the summit, we are on Dial. 2:45. Made great time, as always, coming from Nippletop. The Great Range looking absolutely incredible in front of us. Another just magnificent view. Clear. The air is smoky today from the wildfires, but all the mountains look pristine and glorious.
Look how far Colvin is.
As expected. And Colvin, way over there. A good day. 4 high peaks. Of course, we still got to get back to the car, but I feel good. I know you feel good. It's a nice day out in high peaks.
We probably had our shortest summit stay of the day on Dial, even though it has one of the best views of the Great Range in the park. But we had over 5 miles still to go to get back to the car, and we didn't stay very long, and we decided to carry back down the mountain. Funny that we stayed on Blake longer than we stayed on Dial today. But we'd be taking the Leech Trail, which goes from the northern slope of Dial over Bear Den Mountain and through the site of the 1999 Adirondack wildfire. And you'll know you're in that wildfire area when you pass through a real new growth section of black birch trees. They're just everywhere. Very new growth, and you'll see a lot of areas that are clearly burned, burns on the rocks, burns on big trees. But it's the remnants of the wildfire, and it can be seen to this day.
The burn zone. This is where a forest fire in 1999 burned 90 acres of forest here, and now the new growth has a whole ton of black birch trees. It's a cool vibe, really cool section. You'll know when you're here. Really neat area. Oh yeah, we're just making our way back to the lake road, and then we'll eventually get to John's car and head on to Stewart's for a little milkshake and for a slice of pizza. Can't wait. I'm excited.
So wildfires, people, they do happen here in the Adirondacks, so let's do our best to make it a very rare occurrence. But all 4 summits were complete on the day, and we were just heading back to the car. So naturally, the conversation now involved, what are we going to eat at Stewart's and Keene after the hike? And more importantly, what kind of milkshake are we going to get? That was the discussion. With all the great summer flavors they have at Stewart's, it really is hard to narrow it down, though. But we moved as fast as we could, and we had plenty of time to think about it as we headed down the mountain. And because it was the end of the day, we were very ready to get back to the car. Now, the Leech Trail moves through a large pine forest with huge trees, and the ground is nice and soft and open. So it's actually a great stretch of trail, despite the steeper nature of the trail right at the beginning, or in this case, the end. But going down, we were just flying. So fast that we met back up with our friend Alexis from New Jersey. She could run from us, but she cannot hide. We found you. Anyways, we made it back out of the woods and back to the lake road together, and then we all enjoyed the long, hard walk back to the AMR.
And just like that, we are back on the lake road. Boom. Dial Nippletop, Lake Colvin. Done. Now the long walk back on the hard surface that is the lake road. It's just before 5 o'clock. It's been a long day. We've spent a lot of time on summits today, way more than I would normally spend. And Jonathan was shooting different video stuff throughout the day for a project he's been working on. So that added some time. But overall, a great day in the woods. We caught back up to our friend Alexis from New Jersey. She's hiking out now. She's an absolute beast. She's just like hammering in the high peaks Monday through Friday. It's pretty wild. But yeah, we're on the lake road. I'm gonna scoop some water out of the river up here because I'm out of water. Fill my Nalgene up, get a nice swig of raw river water because that's what I do. Raw, fresh river water. All right, let's go get some water.
Thus completing a good 11-hour day running around the high peaks. It was another amazing time in the mountains that bring us all so much joy, and they teach us so many lessons, and today was nothing short of amazing. And then we got back to Jonathan's car and we drove to Stewart's. I had a seasonal peanut butter pie milkshake and a slice of buffalo chicken pizza, and Jonathan had peanut butter pandemonium milkshake with a chicken sandwich. And of course, both milkshakes extra thick because that's how you do it. And my God, that is what we hike for. Some people hike for views, others hike for milkshakes. But it was another successful day in the high peaks, summiting Colvin, Blake, Colvin again, Nippletop, and Dial, totaling over 6,000 feet of gain and 18 miles of hiking on this perfect Bluebird summer Adirondack day. Thanks to Jonathan for another fun day in the mountains, and shout out to Alexis from New Jersey if she ever stumbles across this podcast. But thank you all for listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. If you like what I do, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Check out 46of46.com for other things I offer, including an ebook about how to climb the 46 high peaks called From 1 to 46, a complete guide to climbing the 46 high peaks. It's a terrific resource that has all the information you'll want to have a safe and successful Adirondack 46er journey. That's available at 46of46.com. Find me on social media at 46of46 podcast. Thanks for listening. Check back on Fridays for new mountains, new stories, new guests, and new episodes right here on the 46 of 46 podcast. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody.
Just over 11 hours today. It's a big day.
Oh, dude, look at this bench. Hey, dude, actually, here, James, here's my keys.
In the
Can you
mountains.
here,
Yeah.
Can you actually just pick me up?
Let me tell you something. If I take those keys, I'm not going to pick you up. I'm going straight to Stewart's.
Oh.
So I cannot help you there. Let's continue. But yeah, nice day. Nice day in the high peaks. What was their totalage? 17 something miles?
We'll be 18 and a half when we get to the car.
18 and a half miles. What's the elevation today? 6,000 something? 6,200 feet of gain. Yeah, that's a full day. 4 high peaks / more like 5. Colvin counts twice, in my opinion. If it counts on other mountains, it counts here. But yeah, big day, fun times. My dogs are barking. Can't wait to take these boots off and put those Crocs on. But other than that, the body actually feels completely fine. So I'm pretty stoked on that day. And time to go back to Lake Placid.